They were creating a free system of government. In a free system with free people, how do you get them to behave? The answer they had was morality. And where do we get morality? We get it from religion.
I'm going to start with that question, the broad and maybe impossibly broad question, which is, what were the religious beliefs of America's founders?
You have to understand that the founding fathers were distinct individuals with individual beliefs, just like politicians or leaders today are individuals, and they don't all believe the same thing. And so the only times it's really appropriate to say the founders said or believed is if you're looking at the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution, the things that they all agreed to. There were Christians among the founders, for sure, but none of the 8 most influential founders were Christians. They were what I have termed theistic rationalists. The rationalist is what their essence was, and then the descriptor theistic, they weren't deistic because they believed that God was present and active in the world, and they believed in some written revelation. So they were theists who were rationalists. And so what did they do? They took elements from Enlightenment thought that they found to be rational and discarded things in Enlightenment thought that they thought were irrational. They took elements from Christianity that they thought were rational and discarded the elements of Christianity that they thought were irrational and created their own hybrid belief system. And then it had some particular beliefs. They believed in a unitary God, who not a triune God, who was present and active in the world, and so prayers matter. There's someone there listening, unlike deism, for example, in which God is an absent God, and that they believe fundamentally that the main factor in serving God was living a good and moral life. And why? Because they were creating a free system of government, something new. And so in a free system with free people, how do you get them to behave? If you don't have the iron fist of an authoritarian, how do you get people to behave? And the answer they had was morality. And where do we get morality? We get it from religion. And so the purpose of religion, in their view, was to engender morality and produce good citizens. The fact that Jefferson was a theistic rationalist, if you understand what that means, it really explains the religious language in the Declaration of Independence. Because I argue that Jefferson wrote it artfully, that's the term I use. He wrote the Declaration artfully so that anyone could read it and read his or her own beliefs into it. You know, people are still arguing today, right? Secularists argue that it's a secularist document and it's natural religion, whatnot. And Christians argue that it's a Christian document. And everybody in between who's not even religious all embrace it. And that's, Jefferson would be very happy to know that, because that's the way he wrote it. And being a theistic rationalists didn't like doctrines because doctrines are divisive. And for them, the purpose of religion, as I said, was to produce morality and to produce good citizens. And so you want people to just be religious, but not any specific religion that would cause them to divide or to separate. So it changed the common conception of what counts as Christianity to a creedless, doctrine-free, non-theological emphasis on ethical behavior, on living a good life, being a good citizen, doing good works. And so, in other words, it ended up promoting what every religion in the world is besides biblical Christianity, which is some type of good works and being good. And that's what's important. And so it elevated that and gave that a new sort of impetus and importance by mixing it with all of the political ideals and with patriotism, to the point at which a lot of people can't separate their, quote, Christianity from their patriotism because they're so interlinked, and their notion of Christianity isn't really based on the gospel. And by the way, one of the things that I emphasize in my work is I believe that when you're dealing with religious beliefs, you're more likely to get to what someone actually believes if you look at what they said privately. Mm-hmm. And so I dealt mostly with private correspondence, their letters, their journals, their diaries, things like that, rather than public pronouncements, which were done by politicians to make the people happy, just like politicians do today.
Right.
And in terms of their view of the Bible, Jefferson, of course, took a cutting device. There's a debate as to what it was. He took a device and cut up the Gospels and created his own version of the Gospels, which is still in print. It's called now the Jefferson Bible. That isn't what he called it. In which he cut out all the supernatural stuff and all the miracles, and he cut out the passages in which Jesus clearly claimed to be God. And then he proclaimed Jesus never claimed to be God. Well, that's easy to do if you cut out all the passages in which he did. And so on the one hand, I understand why people want to have a Christian heritage. And the United States has been a great country because that was God's plan. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have an intimate relationship with him, or that the founders of the country had some type of intimate relation with him.